You don't need engineers, you don't need designers anymore. You can just do that on Claude Code. The only thing that will gonna matter is like building trust online.
Today, we're talking about how top companies are quietly moving away from the traditional hiring system and how platforms like Pangea are connecting young talent directly to real work, real startups, and real money without a degree needed. Prags, our guest today will be answering that. What do you think is one mistake that you see that Gen Z people are making when they try to break into like tech, startups, or even AI?
I think they wait for people to give them a chance. But it goes back to, by being proactive, right? Like yourself. Reach out on LinkedIn, set up a call, let's get acquainted.
In about like 5 to 10 years, what do you think hiring would even look like if platforms like Pangea win? Would resumes even exist? If you're 16 right now, thinking about your future and wondering if college is even the right decision, this episode might completely change how you think about your career moving forward. Today, we're talking about how top companies are quietly moving away from the traditional hiring system and how platforms like Pangea are connecting young talent directly to real work, real startups, and real money without a degree needed. So the big question is the old career path already dead? And if so, what replaces it? Our guest today will be answering that. Prags, thanks so much for joining us and welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good, Rayan. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for having me on. And
Thank you,
just
Prags.
just as a quick note, like our company is called Pangea.ai. So
No,
uh, I thought
sorry,
it was
that's on me.
I thought it was hilarious the way you said it. I mean, everyone says it differently
Yeah,
because it's Greek, but yeah, like it's yeah, no. So at least going forward.
thank you, thank you. All right, so let's dive into the first question. And so you're building Pangea, correct?
Pangea.
Pangea. Okay. You're
Yeah.
building Pangea to think about how people really get hired. So my
Mm.
question would be, what is actually broken about the traditional recruiting system today that made you want to build Pangea or like just start it up, you know?
Yeah, so we've been in business now for almost 10 years, right? So I've seen quite a bit of shift. When we started, then the market was intransparent in terms of tech talent globally, right? You could get really good engineers in San Francisco, in New York, and Berlin. But if you wanted to hire in, let's say, Rio or in Warsaw, in all of these little pockets of the world where there's a huge dense of great tech talent, you really was hiring blind. So what we did was to make sense of that market and surface great talent that normally doesn't get the opportunity because they're not locally based in New York or Berlin, right? So we kind of changed that landscape. That was our first rodeo. So we kind of gave the platform to people that were really really good. They built amazing products, but just based on where they were um, located, a company in New York may think twice, right? So we gave them the data to really hire with confidence. So that was
Mhm.
our first layer. Now, since then, the market has moved, right? And we have had, I think, 2023 really changed everything in terms of OpenAI now coming with a bang
Mhm.
and releasing ChatGPT. So that has, caused, hiring to be rethought, right? Everyone has been on the fence, and now we are seeing, okay, where is the world headed in terms of hiring? And you see all these layoffs, you're seeing all of these people being um, displaced due to AI just taking their jobs, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think there's the conversation of what the traditional model was. It's slow, it was intransparent. There's a lot of platforms that fix that. But then what is happening right now, right? It's like we are living through a drastic change where senior talent that can orchestrate AI in any field, is paid 750 to $1 million by Anthropic, but then you have the junior guys like yourself that is entering the market with no experience. How
Mhm.
are you gonna create opportunities for yourself? So I
Mhm.
think that's like the dilemma. We have not tackled that yet, and I don't have an answer for that either. I know, like, how you can stand out in that market. But I think it's an interesting time we're living through.
Hmm. Yeah, so if I'm 16 right now with no degree, but just like pure skill and curiosity, how and where would you tell me to start building a career today instead of like wasting 3 to 4 years doing nothing?
I think I will do exactly what you're doing. The reason I'm having the call with you, right, is that
Hmm.
I fundamentally believe that the people that are going to be successful in the future, the people that I will back with money as an angel investor, will have a community that they built since they were young, right? So they started speaking about entrepreneurs like you're doing. You're building a community, you're providing value for your peers, and that will enable you on the back end to basically sell goods and services you know that actually will be beneficial for you. I think that's you know the moat that we are going um, forward with, because if cost of building is going to zero, you can build now on cloud code, on codex, you can build whatever you want. But if I don't have distribution, that's going to make it very hard. So if I
Hmm.
was 16, I will do exactly what you're doing. I will reach out to people on LinkedIn. I will set up a podcast, you know, and I will, start nurturing and building a community.
Exactly. That sounds great. So, Prags, you've seen tons of companies hire talent. So, what's something most students completely misunderstand about what companies are really looking for and really hiring in a candidate?
So I think most students and youngsters, and I remember that myself. I thought, you need to have good grades, you need to, have a good CV and so on. That's just the entry point, right? So, like, I think at the end of the day, you know, human beings want to work with other cool human beings that
Hmm.
also you can grab a beer with, you can grab a coffee with. So I think it's also a personality fit. So, like, once the skill barrier is kind of like, everyone
Match.
understands that you have the skills. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's everything about like the human layer, right? How
Hmm.
are you as a human being? Are you fun to hang out with? You know, are you proactive? Do you shield your team members? Are you easy to work with? I think that's something that people, I don't think about when you're younger, right? It's like
Hmm.
being a person that is easy to work with is such an underrated skill, right? Because um, you know, just making people's life easier by being proactive. You just don't do your tasks. You go and actually help people out. You go be above and beyond your task set. I think
Hmm.
that's what really, tilts um, the tilts it for young people in their favor, right? That they're proactive, right? They take initiative. They just don't sit and wait for the boss or their leader to tell them what
Hmm.
to do. So I think
Hmm.
that's the misconception, and I think that's what interviewers really look for, because you don't want to be, you know,
Just great for the job, but you want to be able to deliver more than what the job asks for.
yeah, and also that you are autonomous, right? And you're independent, that you can, if there's a goal, you go and achieve it and you report back, we're done, okay, what is next, right? As opposed
Hmm.
to someone telling you, you know look,
What to do
these are the
next?
10 things you need to do in order to achieve this goal, and then you get stuck, and then they have to help you. That's
Hmm.
kind of like, even if you have the degrees, right, that's where it kind of goes wrong. From time to time people get let go, and then people that don't have any degrees at all, they're just able to reason this with common sense and get on with it.
Hmm. So I kind of want to add on to your answer with this question, and that's like, Panji connects companies with early talent. So what really separates the top 1% of like young people on the platform compared to all the other users?
Yeah, so Pangea connects uh, connects the talent that are generally proactive. Not proactive just in the sense of their skill set, right? And they use it to make work easier for people. They provide services, but at the same time, Pangea, that the young people at Pangea, they are also highly communicative, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
if you have an issue, if you have a bug, if you have something that you've done that you shouldn't have done, right? Instead of hiding it, you know, communicate it. And I think that sets the young people apart. And in the companies that we vet and bring in through our network, that's one of the key criteria for us, is that the people that you bring in, the junior or senior, communicate clearly, flag things, just be proactive.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, so let's say I'm choosing between going into college or uni versus going straight into work or startups. In 2026, how exactly should someone think about that decision, and what should they really factor into making that decision?
So I think, you know, going forward, right? I think, guys like yourself, from what I see, the trend is that, you guys are more prone to, buy from your peers. So you will see someone on Instagram, you will see someone on TikTok, you will like them, you like their content, you like what they talk about, you like their
Mhm.
lifestyle, so you buy and consume information from them, right? So that I feel like that's the educational path of the new generation, like you guys. And then the university path is more traditional, but I don't think you go to university to study. I mean, I certainly didn't for sure, but it's like, you know you go to university, to have the most human experience that you can have,
Mhm.
right? You go and you hang out with people. This is the first time you're away from home, most likely.
Mhm.
You hang out with people that is your age, that becomes like your family, that goes, and you go and build lifelong relationships, which actually is what matters. So I think you kind of have to think about it in a way like what suits you the most. Is it the track,
Mhm.
or like, I'm an independent learner, and like, that's what I want to do, and now I want to go and build something myself? Because even when you're building, you will find your community, right, of people that backs you, believes in you, and so on. But the university track is not off. I think academically, yes, it's probably not going to help you much in terms of, oh yeah, you're going to get a job and so forth. But
Mhm.
as a human being, like, to get that experience, I think is bar none.
It'll help you grow a lot. Yeah. All right. So, look, you've seen a lot of Gen Z, like ambitious Gen Z people. So, what do you think is one mistake that you see, like that Gen Z people are making when they try to break into like tech, startups, or even AI?
I think they wait for people to give them a chance,
Okay.
right? I think they apply for jobs. I think they wait for a framework to be given
Mhm.
to them. But it goes back to, by being proactive, right? Like yourself, reach out on LinkedIn, set up a call, let's get acquainted. It's like you and I, we have a podcast. Maybe down the line, you're building something. You can reach out to me and say, hey, you want to invest in my company, right?
Mhm.
That's like the sequence that you go through. But if you know don't take the chance and you hide behind application windows on the website and so on, and say, hey, I couldn't get the job, they didn't look at my CV, you
Mhm.
know that's, for me, it's not the approach. And I think that's why you need to be human. You need to network, you need to meet people, and you need to shoot your shot, right? So that's kind of where I see, a lot of youngsters go wrong, is that they sit idle and think that there's this huge system that is against them, but it's actually just other human beings that are just too busy, right? And you just have
Mhm.
to crack that first layer of business and you know get people on the line, like, you have done.
Thank you. Yeah. So you would say like procrastination is like a big thing that you see a lot of Gen Z people doing. They're not like, going out of their comfort zone and like emailing people, connecting with them. So you're saying it's like you see a lot of that, right?
Yeah, I think it's more I don't know if it's procrastination,
Not
right?
procrastination, yeah, but
But I think it's just general view on how things work, right? That there are these formal channels that they probably learned from their parents. You need to apply for a job, you need to do that. But if you want to be successful, right, you have to kind of bend, reality to your will, right?
Mhm,
So it's
mhm,
like if you're a 16-year-old on LinkedIn, right? It's like that's pretty special, because most 16-year-olds don't have LinkedIn because they don't have a job, right?
mhm,
But
yeah.
then you can connect with all of these guys. So once you do um, have to apply for jobs, you have been, engaging with them for such a long time that they are aware of Ryan, like, and so if you shoot them a message, they've been seeing maybe your content, they've been seeing you around, subconsciously you will respond, as opposed to, someone totally new, right? But you need to start, right, at one point, and you need to go, I think, in a more of an unorthodox way, to get the opportunities that you would like to have.
So, Prags, you said you bend your reality to your own will. So, are you able to give me an example from your life where you've done that?
Yeah, sure. So, for me, right, like I wanted to build a company, right? And you know, and we didn't have anyone interested into funding us when we started off, right? We tried, didn't work, but then we just found ways to do it, and bootstrap the business, right? And bend the will, in our favor. So over time, now every week I have people that want to invest in the company, right? As
Hmm.
opposed to
Hmm.
me, like in the early days, trying to raise money. Now it's just the other way around. But now I don't need it anymore, right?
Hmm.
But you bend it by just pushing through. When people say no, keep going. It's like if you were to come to me, Ryan, and tell me, "Hey, I need money. I'm starting my venture. My litmus test is to understand your background. It's like, what are your traumas, right? What are
Hmm.
your traumas that will keep you going on a Tuesday when it is rainy and it is disgusting outside and everyone tells you you're worthless, right? Do you
Hmm.
keep going, right? So I think, that is like, the first like litmus test for any entrepreneur. And from there, you can bend reality to your will. Like, so for example, I have a fully remote company, right? Everyone said it was impossible to not have an office back in 2018 and 17 when we had like a penthouse office and spent too much money on that. It was more facade than actually, helping us, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Especially when we were not making any income, to that degree. But then we were fully remote. We basically implemented a lot of workflows that enable people to work in Italy, for me to move to Dubai, for my co-founder to be in London and Switzerland, at the same time. And like,
Hmm.
so we just, you build, with the intention of how you want your life to be. You want to have maximum flexibility in terms of your time, your ability to travel, and you can do that. But I think the way you do it is most likely through entrepreneurship, because with entrepreneurship you control your destiny, you
Hmm.
can build systems, and you can really push forward if you have the grit.
Yeah, and if you get like a corporate job, you're stuck in that certain place, 9 to 5. And you only get certain days off. Like when you go entrepreneurship, it's a lot more flexible your life, right? So yeah, so Prag, since we're talking about companies, are you able to tell me like why startups and teams are increasingly more open to hiring younger and more non-traditional talent nowadays, like compared to like the last few years? Like, is it because of AI? Is it just this specific year? Like, what's going on with companies nowadays?
I think you have to think about just the general macro shift of
Okay.
building, right? Building anything is going to zero, right? And to our conversation earlier, so what is left is distribution, right? And it's like
Mhm.
the people my age, that is between like, I would say 30 and 40, or even 25 to 40, they are not camera native, right? Like the younger generation, you guys are camera native. Like, you've been, Snapchatting, you've been sending videos, your whole life, right? As opposed to us that grew up texting and, maybe FaceTiming in our 20s, but it's not like we were making a lot of video content,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I think that is like the shift, you know, in marketing and distribution, is that you need video content at scale, right? And younger people are more comfortable in front of the camera explaining stuff, jumping on podcasts, as opposed to the older gen that is, used to working in a set way, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's like a big plus for the younger generation.
All right. All right. So I want to move on to our last question, which is in about like 5 to 10 years, what do you think hiring would even look like if platforms like Pangea win? Would resumes even exist?
Uh, I think you will have basically an online resume, right?
Okay.
That is, I think we're going into a world, right, where the economy is going to be agent to agent, as opposed to, humans to humans and humans to agents. So most of the time, it's like for us to schedule this podcast, Rayan, your agent should just speak to my agent,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just meet up here, and everything is prepared. You do the same, right? So it's like, if you think in that reality, right, when you need to get stuff done, agents will find the best people based on their track record online, their
Mm-hmm.
content, their marketing, and so forth, and propose different people to you that can come in and basically say, hey, you're stuck here. You need a senior CTO that can help you unblock for 2 hours. Okay, this is the best job, best guy for the job, or best girl for the job. You send the agent sends a message to their agent, and then they jump on and like basically sort that out, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the future we're going into in probably the next few years. I think 10 years from now, I can't really tell you because AI is moving so fast,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's evolving really
But
quick. Yeah.
yeah, so but one thing I do know is that digital real estate is going to mean a lot, right? Like, so the content that you are now building now is assets for you in 5 years, where my agent can be like, okay, there's this guy called Rayon. This is his background. He started creating content as he was 15, 16, and
Mm-hmm.
now his channel has grown. Would you like to reappear on his channel? It will be great for your business now because you're doing X, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the direction of travel, right? So I think building online, building in public, it's going to be really important in order for agents to find this information and find the right people. So I don't think you will have a resume like a CV and it's just static, but it's going to be
With
ever
all digital real
evolving.
estate.
Yeah, and I think the agents will also be looking, okay, I want to hire Prags, but let me check what he's doing, in the next 3 months. It's like, you're scouting a football player, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you're watching them. What are they doing digitally, right? Because I also think like, you will also have blockchain that will, enter the more the public arena, where you will also see how people transact, with whom, and like you will have a lot more data, in order to make sense of your digital trail as such.
Mm-hmm. I understand. Yeah. Prags, once again, this has been truly, really insightful. I really appreciate it. And now, the only thing about advice I have here is that it only matters if you use it. So, you and I just both sat through an entire conversation with someone who has built a company that's reshaping how services get scoped and shipped. Someone who didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for the right time or the right credentials, but just started. And that's rare. Most founders give you the motivation, but Prag just gave you the permission slip. So now the only real question that matters is, what are you going to do with it over the next 7 days? Pick one move, just one. Maybe it's finally scoping out that idea you've been sitting on for months. Maybe it's reaching out to a builder you've been too intimidated to message. Or maybe it's just committing to ship something, anything, before you let yourself prepare for one more thing you'll never start. Don't forget to download the playbook for this episode. Subscribe to the GenZEO Playbook podcast, drop your biggest takeaway down in the comments, and send this to a person who needs to hear it. Once again, I'm Ran Ali. This is the GenZEO Playbook podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.